Thank you for joining us on Synthesis Workshop. On today's Research Spotlight episode, I'm very happy to be joined by Dr. Simon Schnell. Simon got his bachelor's degree as well as his master's degree from Ludwig Maximilian University, LMU, in Munich. He subsequently completed a PhD at the University of Zurich, where he worked in the group of Professor Karl Gademann. He finished up there in 2020 and now works at Bioconj Exclusive Synthesis AG in Switzerland. And from there, I'll hand it over to you, Simon. Thanks a lot for coming on today to share your work.
Thank you, Matt, for this kind introduction and for giving me the opportunity to share some of our recent research in this Research Spotlight episode on the synthesis of 3S-tetrazenes and the study of their reactivity. Tetrazenes are these nitrogen-rich heterocycles which have become valuable building blocks in many fields of chemistry, including energetic materials due to their high nitrogen content, as building blocks for total synthesis, as recently showcased by the total synthesis of Azameron, where this tetrazene was used to forge the pyridazine core through an inverse electron demand field-Alder reaction, as parts of organic electronics, and most recently in bioorthogonal chemistry due to their fast reactivity with alkynes and alkenes. When looking at the bioorthogonal reactions available to us to date, starting from early findings as the Staudinger ligation over strain-promoted A-side alkyne click cycloadditions, photoclick 1,3 dipolar cycloadditions, and copper-catalyzed A-side alkyne click cycloadditions, these reactions all have the drawback of either exhibiting very slow kinetics or having the need for light as an activator or a copper catalyst, which is not compatible with living systems. When looking at the inverse electron demand yield-Alder reaction all the way down here, between a tetrazene and an unsaturated hydrocarbon, this reaction displays by far the most superior kinetics, doesn't need an activator, and additionally only produces nitrogen as the sole byproduct. That's why tetrazenes have become valuable compounds for bioorthogonal chemistry. And thus also the need for developing novel synthetic methods has grown. Tetrazenes were firstly synthesized by using imidoesters and hydrazine to form symmetric S-tetrazenes. This methodology was then improved to also accept nitriles under divalent nickel or zinc catalysis to synthesize symmetric and non-symmetric S-tetrazenes. 3 monosubstituted S-tetrazenes are far more difficult to be synthesized, and the only general method is using formamidine and a nitrile and also hydrazine to synthesize 3 monosubstituted S-tetrazenes in 10 to 20% yield. Recently it was showcased that you can also replace this formamidine by dichloromethane to obtain aryl and benzyl substituted 3 monosubstituted tetrazenes. We started our tetrazene research campaign when we were looking into the literature and found that there's only one general method to install tetrazenes in larger molecules, for example biomolecules. This method utilized an amine present in the biomolecule and a carboxylic acid-derived tetrazene containing a linker unit. This method displays several drawbacks. Firstly, of course, it's limited to an amine. You need to have a linker, which is usually quite large and hydrophobic and potentially influences the folding of your biomolecule. And additionally, forming an amide bond usually is quite difficult and sometimes also needs an additive. We were wondering if we could not use a so-called minimal tetrazene, displayed down here, which contains a fluorophoric unit as the tetrazene core, which is also the bioorthogonal handle, and a site for nucleophilic aromatic substitution. But why do we want to develop 3S-tetrazenes? 3S-tetrazenes usually exhibit much faster kinetics in an inverse electron demand yield-Alder reaction as their 3,6 disubstituted analogs. This was shown here when these corresponding tetrazenes were reacted with cyclopropene and transcyclooctene, and it was found that the reactivity of 3 monosubstituted S-tetrazenes is far superior. That's why the need for the synthesis of 3 monosubstituted S-tetrazenes is growing, since bioorthogonal chemistry is all about kinetics due to the low concentrations of target molecules, especially in living systems. Our synthesis towards 3 heliotetrazenes commenced by a polyamination reaction of guanidine hydrochloride and a subsequent condensation reaction of the obtained nitrogen-rich compound with acetylacetone. After oxidation of the dihydrotetrazene core, desymmetrization of this dipyrosolotetrazene was feasible using exactly one equivalent of hydrazine. Oxidative removal of the hydrazine unit then delivered our 3-monosubstituted S-tetrazine, which again could be reacted with hydrazine in a nucleophilic aromatic substitution reaction to obtain this 3-hydrazinotetrazine. We then found that these isocyanuric acid-derived compounds, namely trichloroisocyanuric acid and dibromoisocyanuric acid, were feasible halogenating reagents and produced the corresponding 3-halotetrazines. However, these 3-halotetrazines that we obtained showed quite different properties, whereas 3-chlorotetrazine was difficult to purify and was also very volatile and thus difficult to isolate. 3-bromotetrazine is easy to purify, stable for months in the freezer, insensitive to electrostatic impact and friction, and not as volatile as the 3-chloro derivative. Additionally, we quickly visited the synthesis of the 3-iodotetrazine, however found that only NIS was suitable to halogenate this unit, and additionally the yield was quite low, and we could only isolate 3-iodotetrazine as a red oil. However, one major advantage of this compound would be that it's observable in HRMS. Based on all superior properties, 3-bromotetrazine was chosen for further investigation. We first were of course interested to see how 3-bromotetrazine behaves in the presence of different functional groups. Thus we synthesized a variety of different phenoxy-substituted S-tetrazines in good yield. Interestingly, also very bulky phenols as well as this B-pin substituted phenol underwent smooth reactivity, and we obtained the corresponding 3-phenoxytetrazine. This B-pin derivative then has already now a handle for subsequent cross-coupling modification. As a base, collidine was sufficient. In contrast, primary hydroxy groups displayed a sluggish reactivity, and these compounds could only be isolated in rather low yield and only after long reaction times. Next, we investigated nitrogen heterocycles like indoles, carbazoles, and benzimidazoles and found that the stronger base DBU is required in this case, opposing collidine being sufficient before. Interestingly, also for indoles, the reaction was found to happen at the nitrogen and not at the more nucleophilic 3 position of the indole. Lastly, we examined amines as nucleophiles and also here found that the reaction works smoothly using 2 equivalents of amine and thus producing aminotetrazines in good yield. Next, we were intrigued to see what happens if we use bifunctional compounds containing 2 potential nucleophilic sites. Interestingly, we were only able to isolate a single regioisomer in each case. These tryptamine-derived compounds reacted exclusively at the amine over the indole. The tyramine and the aminophenol also selectively reacted at the amino functionality, and thus these compounds were obtained with exclusive regioselectivity. Having studied the reactivity with functional groups, we then moved to a more application-based research and first were intrigued to see if we can synthesize amino acids, which already now were modified with the tetrazine. We were able to isolate a large number of methyl and BOC protected as well as terbutyl and FMOC protected amino acids using the same conditions I showcased on the previous slide. We then moved forward trying to deprotect our synthesized amino acids, and whereas the methyl esters could not be deprotected due to the harsh, usually quite basic conditions required to hydrolyze this ester, which are incompatible with the tetrazine unit, the terbutyl group could be deprotected using TFA. And we then established this reactivity scale based on our observations before and predicted a sulfide to be far more reactive than an amine, which should be more reactive than a phenol and an alkyl group. We were then trying to probe this established reactivity scale in more complex molecules, and we were trying to site selectively functionalize these molecules with a high predictability of the site of functionalization. Thus, we looked into functionalizing this antibiotic, which has multiple hydroxy groups, and also these peptides shown down here. The site of functionalization which we predicted is highlighted here. Interestingly, this worked really well. We were able to isolate a single compound in each case, where the modification took place at the predicted site. Fidaxomycin, for example, could be functionalized using the previously established conditions selectively at the phenol over all other hydroxy groups. Additionally, this dexamethasone compound, which is a steroid-derived compound, could be selectively functionalized at the primary hydroxy group. Turning our attention to peptides, the cyclic peptide cyclosomatostatin could be selectively functionalized at the amine over the indole unit, and this complex linear peptide leuproline could be functionalized selectively at the tyrosine unit when using collidine as a base, opposing to the conditions necessary to functionalize the imidazole where Dbu would be necessary as a base. Here I also want to point out that water was a compatible solvent with 3-bromotetracene and that did not decompose our tetrazine. Having established the reactivity with heteroatoms, we then turned our attention to the second possible reactivity of tetrazines, namely the inverse electron demand Diels-Alder reaction. We were intrigued to see how 3-bromotetrazine behaves when being reacted with unsaturated hydrocarbons. In this case, we demonstrated that bromotetrazine can react with silyl-enol ethers using BF3 as a catalyst to form the corresponding 3-bromopyridazine in good yield. However, when we introduced a substituent into the silyl-enol ether, a mixture of an unknown compound and the expected pyridazine was obtained where the unknown compound was the major component in the mixture. This situation was also verified when we introduced the phenyl group, and now we could not observe the pyridazine at all anymore, but only the unknown compound. After multiple crystallization attempts, we were intrigued to see that we could isolate and characterize this triazine-derived compound. However, this compound turned out to be the decomposition product of our first isolated intermediate, since this isolated intermediate contains a bromide isotopic pattern observed in HRNS. After further multiple attempts, we finally were able to characterize this intermediate, and it proved to be this dihydrotetrazine, which is formed through a nucleophilic attack of our silyl-enol ether on the nitrogen, opposing the expected reactivity of an inverse electron demand Diels-Alder reaction. This reactivity was unknown for unsaturated systems like this and was only found before when using strong nucleophiles like Grignard reagents or organolithium reagents, opposing the normal reactivity that we would expect with a double bond delivering the pyridazine. We were then intrigued to investigate the substrate scope of this reaction, first varying the electronic properties of our aryl system. Of course, introducing an electron pushing group increased the yield of this reaction. Bearing in mind that a methyl group led to a mixture, we were then investigating the minimal steric requirements of the functional groups on the silyl-enol ether and found that for terbutyl, cyclopropyl, and isopropyl group, the only isolable compounds corresponded to the azaphilic addition products. We were then wondering if this reactivity is an intrinsic property of 3-bromotetrazine, and synthesized several aryl and alkyl substituted tetrazines, and all of these compounds also underwent azaphilic addition. However, in these cases, reactivity was much slower due to the higher electron richness of the tetrazine core. We next set out to gain some mechanistic insights into this unexpected reactivity. First, we investigated if an aryl group is necessary on the silyl-enol ether and could show that this is not the case and that with a terbutyl group the azaphilic addition pathway occurs, delivering this terbutyl variant over here with an X-ray structure shown next to it. Next, we switched the double bond geometry in the cyclic silyl-enol ether, and here, interestingly, azaphilic addition did not occur, but we could again now produce an inverse electron demand Diels-Alder reaction. The same was true for this enamine. We then teamed up with the Luber group at the University of Zurich to carry out some calculations on our system. And we were first interested in the role of BF3 and calculated the local electrophilicity index of each nitrogen in the tetrazine after coordination of the BF3. And as expected, BF3 depletes the S-tetrazine of electron density and activates the nitrogen para to the site of coordination for nucleophilic attack. The most electrophilic nitrogen is shown in red. We then calculated the activation barriers and could show that the activation barriers for azaphilic attack after BF3 coordination are lower than the inverse electron demand Diels-Alder reaction. We could also demonstrate in this case that BF3 lowers the activation barrier of this reaction. Lastly, we gained some mechanistic insights by using the active strain model, which demonstrated that there is an energetic penalty for higher substituted double bonds when undergoing inverse electron demand Diels-Alder reaction due to the strong strain necessary to reach a planar transition state. In this case, azaphilic addition becomes more favorable. In conclusion, we developed access to 3 halotetrazines and showcased their reactivity towards heteroatoms. The sharp reactivity profile observed rendered protecting group free functionalization of polyfunctional compounds feasible. We could also access functionalized peptides due to an unexpected stability in aqueous systems. Lastly, we investigated the reactivity of 3-bromotetrazine and other tetrazines in an inverse electron Diamanthius-Alder reaction and showed that trisubstituted sialoenol ethers act as nucleophiles towards 3-monosubstituted S-tetrazines. We showed a broad substrate scope and a competition reaction between inverse electron Diamanthius-Alder reaction and nucleophilic addition, depending on the steric bulk of the substituent. An interesting rearrangement of the obtained dihydrotetrazines to a bicyclic triazine-derived compound was also observed. With this, I want to close and thank Professor Dr. Karl Gademann, my supervisor during my PhD, as well as Dr. Simon Sieber and Dr. Jan Skliarok for their help on the tetrazine work. I would also like to thank the University of Zurich, as well as the Graduate School of the University of Zurich, and I'm happy to answer any questions or to give you further information. My contacts are shown down here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this Research Spotlight episode, and thank you to Simon for a really interesting presentation. If you enjoyed the episode, please support us by subscribing and telling your peers about this podcast. And feel free to send us any questions and comments you have. Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date, and see you all next time.